If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. And yes, I am alive. Now let's get back to work. I want to talk about what's going on with this contact tracing. Obviously, you've known about the contact tracing with cell phones and how they implemented that months ago with this whole outbreak. But now there's things that people need to be aware of, cautious of, and see why they're doing this. Now, you may have noticed if you follow sports or even just hear about it in the news, from the NFL to the NBA, the NBA is playing in what they call a bubble. The NFL has all these outbreaks that are causing, teams to move games and stuff. Obviously, nobody cares about that. But what people don't know is that these athletes are using and wearing these devices known as safe zone tags. Now, most people are only aware of the contact tracing through Google and these other companies pretty much hacking into your phone, which they shouldn't even be allowed to do in the first place. What these safe zone tags do is they're either chipped on or put on a watch or a wristband. And I've talked about this for a long time about how they move things from one to the next to eventually get inside the body and microchipped, right? I've talked about the credit card. The whole point of the credit card, then the credit card turned into the chip, right? Nobody's able to swipe anymore. You insert the chip. And what's next? What happened right after it? The tap, right? From the Amazon Go stores, from using cash and going to a cashless society to be able to scan with your phone. I talked about those events like Tomorrowland and Coachella, where you would get a wristband right on your wrist to be able to make purchases to get in and out of the theme park. Well, that is what they're going to do to begin implementing social distancing around the world, specifically here in America. This new invention, which, well, it's not necessarily new, and of course, by the way, as you'll see in this article, they're marketing these social distancing bracelets. They're using, obviously, the sports and the athletes to talk about how they're able to stop the spread of this, because some people were suspicious. Like, how are football players not going to spread something if this is actually real and going on, which it isn't? Right? And they said, well, because we're using this technology, which is keeping us aware and alert of who's going near who, right, at all times. And it's buzzing and going off so people are aware if they're social distancing or not and violating the rules. Well, that's what they're going to do to the rest of society. They're getting people prepared for it. And the social distancing bracelet is really the next step that you might see. And you could see even in this article, of course, the number 33 on this one specific bracelet. So it shows you who's exactly behind it. But take a look at these bracelets, which will buzz and vibrate if you're near somebody and you're not following the mandated social distancing rules.
Hi, this is a video where we are trying to give the demonstration of a social distancing band. So we'll start with powering it on, and then we'll show you how it works within the social distance of 1.5 meter, and when we take it away from 1.5 meter, how it behaves and how the alerts comes up and how alert goes. So we'll start and we'll switch it on. So once you have to long press the notch sign there. And when you switch it on, you can see that it will blink 3 times. Now, since they've started vibrating, you can see the vibration. Both the bands are vibrating clearly. And now we'll be taking it little away gradually. So you can see the distance is somewhere around this band is here, and the other band is like somewhere around 1 meter away as of now. We'll make it further away, then it will stop vibrating. That has been taken away, and you can see the band has stopped vibrating. Now we'll bring it back to show that when the people will come and now so you can see now this is also started vibrating and the other band is also started vibrating. To make it look little more clear, we will again take it forward, and then yes, you can see that it stopped vibrating. Now we'll again, can you bring it back? So now it has come nearby, so you can see this is also vibrating and that is also vibrating.
So this is just another way for them to completely control people's behavior, to control people and isolate people from people. Remember 1984? I showed the clips from 1984. I even put the movie on here for people to watch. I don't know if anybody watched the full movie, understandable. But what's important to know about 1984, whether you've read the book or seen the movie, is that what you're seeing going on right now with this outbreak is exactly how they're getting people distanced from each other and isolated into their own homes and imprisoned in their own homes in a quote-unquote either police state or military state, right? In that movie, we saw how men and women, you couldn't interact. You weren't even allowed to speak to each other. And it was just insane, people would thought, because they said that will never happen. Well, now we're seeing that happen, right? I've talked about examples of this. I've heard you guys comment on my videos, read you guys comment on my videos or on my website at callforanuprising.com and talk about, going to the grocery store and how people aren't making eye contact, how people, if you get within 4 feet, they kind of jump backwards, right? If somebody doesn't have a mask on, they're disgusted with that person because they're endangering their health. Like, this is all created through social engineering. This is what the media has done. But remember, the end game is to get people microchipped here. Now, whether you believe that the chip is coming through the actual vax when it comes out, and remember too, another thing that I talked about, which I'll get to in a second, but whether it's through the vax or whether it's through people, having to have a chip implanted to buy and sell, and live that way with cashless society. But remember I talked about this a while ago. What you're seeing right now is the beginning of a crackdown where people are really getting so frustrated with all this stuff. You hear the narrative in the media that, well, it's fall, people have been doing this for 8 months, they no longer want to follow these rules, and there's another uptick because people aren't behaving, right? And what this is just them trying to continue to frustrate people to the point where 3 months ago they might have said, I would never take a shot. 8 months ago, I would never have taken one. That's what people will say, no chance. But now, you know what, to end this, to be able to travel, to be able to leave their homes and go places. Now, some of you might say, well, it's not like that where I live. Well, there's a lot of states that are still completely, on the East Coast, on the West Coast, some of the states in, Central America, which pretty much I'm just mentioned pretty much all of America, but obviously there's states that are a little bit lenient. Texas has been a little bit lenient. Florida obviously has been a little bit lenient. You could see that there's actually sporting events going on in some of these states where there's fans allowed, in some states where they're not. But it's still a complete lockdown for most people. You have to wear a mask to go to the grocery. You have to wear a mask to go here. You have to wear a mask to go there. You have to get the test if you want to travel somewhere, right? Which is preventing people from going away or leaving or anything else or entering other states without being quarantined. It's making people isolate themselves, self-quarantine, aka self-imprison themselves. So we have all of this stuff happening at the same time, but look how they're sneakily starting to move things, again, to the wrist, right? Just like the credit card, I talked about the cell phone, from the cell phone going to the Apple Watch. Now they're talking about going from the cell phone with social tracking to going to a bracelet. And you don't think that's something where they can just go, oh, well, you just put a chip in you and, it'll just make a sound, or they could mandate it because people are continuing to be undisciplined in America and violating this. This is nonsense. This is against our rights. And it's amazing to me that this long into this process, which, look, I struggle to deal with this stuff on a daily basis because I'm so pissed off. And people used to say to me like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, how do you sit through this stuff and make these videos and not lose your mind? And I was stronger then because this right now, what's going on to me is the most insane thing I think I've ever seen. Because we've watched everyone give their rights up. We've watched, how many people have lost their jobs? How many businesses have had to close because of this nonsense? It's more dangerous for somebody to text and drive than the statistics that they give on this, which aren't even real statistics because nothing's really happening, right? And then they come out with all these things where they're like, well, if you question the WHO, if you question so-and-so, you're a danger and a detriment to society for having a difference of opinion or questioning anything. Why don't you just let us be crazy people then and not agree with it, right? Don't they say, oh, then you'll die off? But of course, it's because we could be endangering other people. The nonsense just continues and continues on. But the chipping and the moving things to the wrist is something I've always talked about and how they commonly are doing that. And again, mentioned Tomorrowland, right? That's a stupid concert thing. I talked about that 4 years ago. And all these events that they were starting to hold where they were doing cashless events, where people were loading money on a bracelet and wearing it. And going to these events, instead of getting cash out, they were using the bracelets, which was preparing people subconsciously, especially, obviously, the youth, the ones who were going to be all on board, wanting to be chipped, wanting a cashless society, who are already used to a cashless society for the most part because they pay for everything electronically. So getting them prepared to take the mark, take the chip inside of them. And now we have the contact tracing and these inventions and these whispers. The WHO is talking about implementing some type of mandatory social distancing device such as a watch/bracelet as well onto people. So, you go to the grocery store, you get within 5 feet of somebody. Zzz. I mean, really? It's almost like, going out with an ankle bracelet on and you're on home arrest. And people still look at this and they don't believe that we're on house arrest when we are on house arrest. You might see a lot of cars out and people, around going places, but still, you got to go in the store, put on your mask, follow the rules as they continue to strip rights away. And then they continue on top of it to take free speech away. Because they say people who speak against any of this stuff are a danger to the rest of the world, and they shouldn't be allowed to talk about it. And people are okay with it. Frightening to think about. There's plenty of stuff that I have to talk about, lots of videos coming this week, lots of new videos coming to my website at callforanuprising.com. I'm glad, and I hope everybody's still here listening to the channel. Look, I would have, this is the time of year where it's pretty hard for me not to do videos because we're upon the season here of The Witch, which you'll see a video coming out shortly on. We all know that Halloween is coming up and what goes on. So we have all this other nonsense happening with the fake news and the phony election and all this crap. But we also have ritual season here, which is very important to remember for spiritual warfare. That we all have to keep our shields up, our guards up, stay in prayer, and fight against this. Because these people during this period, they believe, whether you believe it or not, that the veil is the thinnest. This is where they summon demons, they cast spells, and look, they ain't doing it, casting evil spells and stuff on, anybody really other than their own enemies, which really are Christians, right? The people that despise the witches and the Satanists of this world. So keep your guard up, and I thank everybody again. I want to thank the Patreons who have remained Patreons through this hard time for everybody. I'm just kind of rambling. I haven't talked in a while, but thank you all again. Watch out for the social distancing bracelet. It's an absolute joke. God bless all of you and your families.